Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my apple tree. My apple tree has been a story of success, failure, and maybe someday success again. I had some disease on it and I would say 80% of the tree died back. You can see the old apex here is just all dead. So I still had one live vein growing up the tree, so I've developed a new apex on it. This side of the tree always stayed alive, and I've got to reduce that back today. It's starting to take over the entire tree, so I've got to kind of balance those two elements. I've noticed it has aphids on it. I'll show you those. Here's a look at the aphids. So you can see them on the tips of the branches there, busy sucking the life out of my tree. So I think when I prune the tree today, a lot of those will be gone with the branches. Today I'll be pruning the tree, making some styling decisions on it, pruning it back to shape, weeding it, and getting rid of my insect problems. This tree has a very powerful base on it. So if we look in here, you can see the live section on this side, the live section on the right hand side, and in between is the dead wood from when the old apex died back. It's covered in moss at the moment. My hope is that roots from the new live part of the apex will grow into the rotted wood and kind of create an interesting tree in the future. So I'm not worried about that wood rotting away. My apple tree leafed out in spring really nicely. All the leaves were looking really healthy, but now I see at the tips of some of the branches they're beginning to wilt. And that may be partially caused by the aphids. It could be the hot weather we've been having. So hopefully, when I prune it back and spray for the aphids with soap and water, that it'll regain its health once again. I was looking at the tree, and I think most of my wilting problems are caused by aphids. I just noticed them on this branch. They're really, really heavy. So I got to get rid of those. I've got a plastic bag that I'll put all my clippings in so the aphids don't spread to my other trees. Alright, so here I go with the pruning. I'm going to clip off the branch tips that have the most aphids on them first, just so I don't bump those branches and knock them down into the soil where they can climb back up the tree. So here I go. So there's a branch right here. Tons of aphids at the tips, and that can go in the bag. That'll be their new home. It looks like the aphids are pretty much on every branch tip, so I'll just get them all pruned back. Okay, I think that's got 90% of the aphids off already. So the next step, I'm going to actually prune the branches for styling now, not just to get rid of aphids. So I'll keep my bag kind of closed over here so the aphids don't get out. And I'll put all the rest of the clippings in this bag eventually. I'm going to start the pruning at the apex of the tree. So there's a lot of tall vertical branches that I want to shorten back. And I'm looking for a leaf that's facing outwards so I can get that canopy kind of spreading out. So I've got an outward facing leaf here, and one here. So I'll prune just above that to there. The one that comes out the front, I've got an outward facing leaf here, which is nice. One here, which kind of crosses back. There's another one up top here facing outwards. So I think I'll go just above this one, like that. That shortens the apex down. At the back here, I've got an outward facing leaf here, one here. So I'll prune just above that, like that. That gets the apex shortened down. I don't know, maybe it's still a little high. I could go back to this leaf and this one, so I think I will. It just looks a little high to me. This one, I could go back even further. I will. That gets that apex nice and compact now. So there's a branch out the front here I left everything that's living on the tree growing, just to keep all my options open. And so there's a branch growing up the front here, which isn't the greatest, but I'm going to keep it. So I just want to prune it back also. So I'm looking for some outward facing leaves, a couple here, so I'll prune it back to here, like that. There's one here, go back to here, like that. And then there's a vertical part going straight up here. That will need pruning back. I'm going to go right back to here, like that. So that kind of gets that branch trimmed up a bit. Now it's got some branches that are growing back towards the tree. I don't think I want those. And I've got to make sure I don't want them, because once they're gone, they're gone. Yeah, I think you want to see the trunk, the curve of the trunk. So I'm going to prune it back to here for now. And I may prune it back even further. I'm going to get rid of this one growing up here. And there's one growing back towards the tree. I'm going to get rid of that. And another little one down here. So you can see more of the trunk line now. Now there is another branch coming off here. I think we'll get rid of that totally. Like that. That exposes even more of the trunk line. Yeah, so this branch, it may go in the future, but I'm keeping it there as an option. You never know. This whole apex could die off someday, and I might have to regrow the tree from this branch. So this side of the tree is growing really, really strongly. And, you know, I want the focus to be on the main part of the tree, the apex here, not these auxiliary branches out the back. So this is going to get quite a hard pruning today, all this back section. I'll put all the branches that I just pruned off into the plastic bag also. Here's a look at the tree now, so you can see how thick and heavy this side of the tree is. So I'm going to start on that section now. Before I start pruning, I've got to decide, what do I want this side of the tree to do? Do I want to integrate it into the canopy? Do I want to keep it as a kind of a lower branch down here? So I've got to make some decisions before I start pruning away. So this side of the tree here, I don't want to grow it up as a trunk, because then I'll have like a forked trunk here, and that usually doesn't look very good in bonsai. So I've got a branch out the back that's kind of interesting. I'll show you that. I'll rotate the tree around, and you can see here's my branch out the back here, right here, which is really nice. It's, you know, been pruned a lot over the years, and it's twisty and lots of taper to it. At the back here, you can see the live veins. It runs up here, and there's another live vein that runs up here, and they join together up at the apex. Yeah, not a lot of living parts in this tree, but it's interesting, full of stories and character. So I think I want to prune this back branch shorter and keep it. You can see how much it's overhanging the pot. It's ridiculous. So I've got to shorten it and keep it as a small back branch. And then I think this other branch here is shooting vertical, and I've got to keep that as a more horizontal branch, so it doesn't compete with the main apex up here, so I don't get that kind of forked looking tree. So yeah, something like that, I think. There's a little birch tree growing up in the deadwood here, and I've left it there, and I don't know if I want to keep it there. You can see it here. A little birch. It just grew from a seed there naturally. So yeah, I'll have to decide about that too. I'm going to start the pruning now, and I'll start by reducing everything back, all these long shoots, and then I can get a more clear picture of what's going on with the tree. So I'll just start taking branches back. Here's these really long ones out the back. It's fairly cool this morning. We had single digits. I think the low last night was 9 degrees Celsius. So pretty cool nights, but it warms up nicely in the daytime still. So you can see the back is pushed in a bit more now. Now I got to prune off this tall one up here. I think I'm going to take it off to, I don't know, here. So that's got all the major branches on this side of the tree pruned back shorter so I can get a better view of what's going on in here. A lot of styling decisions to be made on this section of the tree. There's another branch at the apex here that I didn't get to, so I better prune that, and I'm trying to decide where to prune that. It kind of comes off of this main trunk here. I guess I'll just prune it right back to here, like that. There's a few crossing branches. This part of the tree kind of flows outwards. There's a few branches kind of coming in towards the center. I think I want to be able to see the trunk line on the tree, so I don't want all these kind of branches crossing the trunk line. So for now I'm going to prune them back short, and then I may remove them totally when I get a good look at the tree. Another one here. And I'll just leaf prune these leaves off so I can see what's going on a little better. You can see the birch tree growing up the center now. I like that, but I don't think it is something I want to keep long term with the tree. I don't want that combination of a birch and an apple. So I think I'll pull the birch out. Having a birch there is kind of unique, but it's just going to create problems in the future, and I don't want, you know, the focus to be a birch tree growing in an apple tree. I want you to just look at the apple tree. Okay, so that birch came out roots and all, so I can replant that in a pot. I've got the birch tree planted in a little starter pot, so I'll give it some water, and it can go on the bench and hopefully become a bonsai someday. Grow up and become a real tree. I'm going to start making some styling decisions now. I do like this part of the tree kind of coming forward a bit. All this back section is kind of spreading towards the back of the tree, and I think I need something kind of balancing it going forward. So I want to keep some of this section of the tree. So I'm going to prune it back short. So I'll take this vertical part off here, pruning it back to a bud down here, or a branch. This branch is kind of tall and straight here, not much sub-branching. There's one going to the inside, but I do have some leaf scars down here, so I could prune it back shorter, and I will. So right back to here. It's a bit of a Hail Mary cut on that one, but I think it'll be successful. There's a lot of vigor in that branch there. And then there's another branch at the back here kind of shooting up. I don't think I want the top section of it, so I'll take that off like that. That reduces that branch down to kind of a more horizontal branch. So this back branch, it's really an interesting branch. Again, it extends quite far out the back of the tree, too far. So I've got to make it more compact. So I'll start pruning, and I'm going to go back to here. So that's got the back brought in quite a bit, but I'm not sure if it's enough yet. It's really deep coming out the back. I think it's still too long. I may have to reduce it back even further. I think I'll have to take the whole top off of this branch here. Here's that branch, so you can see it kind of comes up and then it grows this way. And I think it's just too long. I have a branch lower down because it's getting quite vertical, this section. I could, oh, there's a scale insect there. Get rid of that. Yeah, I don't want this back branch here to get too vertical. So I've already kind of hard pruned this branch here. And I was thinking of taking the top off there, but it might still be too tall. It might be better to take it off and then keep this as the potential apex, or even one of these lower ones. I think I'm going to take it off here. So here I go. Like that. Let me just finish that cut there. Yeah, so there. That cut has reduced the overhang a lot at the back, but there's still some other branches that are still too long, I think. So I've got to prune those back further. There's a branch here that kind of curls back towards the front of the tree. I prefer it fanning out from the tree. So I'm just looking if I can reduce that. Maybe. I'll take it back to here. Like that. I've got a vertical branch coming up here that I don't want. So I'll take that off. Totally. I'm going to shorten this branch here. It's very straight and there's a bud back here, so I'll take it off here. Like that. There's one growing to the inside here. That should be removed. Like that. I'm looking at the apple tree from the front now. So I think it's much improved. It reduced the mass on this side a lot. Kind of, your eye goes more up the apex now. I'm still not sure about that branch in the front there, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really go with the design, but I hate taking away any living tissue on this tree, any live veins, because it has so few. It's always good to have a backup. So I do not like at the back here, there's a branch kind of coming horizontal. I don't like that one. I think I'm going to take that off or cut it back, one of the two. Yeah, I think that's better. Much better. It's still kind of vertical looking here. I might see what I can do there. So, does that look any better? I think so. It kind of cleans up that section of the tree. It's not quite as dominant anymore. Yeah, I think after this pruning, you'll see a lot of new branches develop and the tree will fill out again, and I think it'll look much better. I think you'll see that upper canopy here start to get a bit more of a crown on it, gain some vigor. I may change the front of the tree eventually. Right now you're kind of, I don't know. Let me have a look. Maybe I can rotate it around and we can see if there's a better front. I think somewhere there is a nice front. It shows the movement of the trunk a lot better. Those branches behind are more back branches. It kind of diminishes those. The width isn't as much across the base, but I don't think that's as important as getting that nice movement to it. So I'll just keep rotating it around, see if there's any other views that are, you know, could look good as a front. There's another caterpillar in there. Come here, you fuzzy guy. There it is. I'll put the caterpillar in the bag with the leaves. I think somewhere there is the best front. Maybe more like that. There you can see the tree kind of without the pot so it doesn't distract you. I think that's a pretty nice front. I'm worried now. In the apex I've kind of got a few straight sections. You know, the trunk is so curvy in this view that they start to stand out as being straight, but maybe, you know, they'll develop branches off of them and I can further style the apex in the future, reducing it back. And there's a dead bit sticking up here that I want to remove. That never looked good in any view. Okay, so yeah, I think that's the plan. I think, you know, the roots look good in this view. It's got certainly a nice shape to it. I think that's a much nicer view for the apple. So I'll mark that as the front. All right, I've got a piece of plastic I can stick in to indicate the front of the tree. There's a look at the size of all the leaves and branches that I pruned off. Quite large, so I'll just keep that sealed and let nature do its thing inside there. My next job on the apple tree is to clean up the weeds and the landscape. I'm quite excited about the tree. I think this new front view is just fantastic. I think this tree is going to look really awesome. I've also got to spray it with the soap and water, but I'll do that after I'm finished all this weeding and landscape work. Then I'll give everything a soaking with soap and water. Yeah, it's really cool, this tree. It's just amazing. So if I keep this tree healthy for the next, 4 or 5 years, I think I'll have a really cool apple bonsai. Tons of character on it. Just amazing. All right, here I go with the weeding now. There's a lot of this starweed or Irish moss in here, and it's all flowering and probably dropping seeds down, and oh, that stuff's horrible. Very hard to get rid of. I find trees like this, that you have to let them grow. I let this apple tree grow for like 5 years to get it to recover. And, when it's on the bench just growing, you're not paying as much attention to, it's not going in any shows, and it just kind of sits quietly on your bench growing. So you don't probably keep it weeded as much as you should. I find every time I work on trees that, I'm weeding and taking care of them. But the ones that are just left to grow, they kind of just get a bit neglected, I guess. Neglected in a good way to grow the tree, but sometimes the landscaping suffers. See how deep the roots are on this Irish moss? They go down really deep. And if you don't get all the root, they start growing again. Hard to get rid of once it's started. But it can be done. Just gotta keep at it. I remember long ago we had Arthur Skolnick, who was pretty famous Canadian bonsai guy, and he's made a video, The Growing Art of Bonsai, which is very good. It was I think I've watched it at least 20 times. And he was a guest at our KW club the one year, and I had my apple tree there, and he looked at it and he said, it's a beautiful tree, but you're in for a lot of heartbreak over the upcoming years. And I thought, oh, okay. And sure enough, as parts of the apple tree started dying back, it got some kind of, I don't know if it was rust or if it was what it was, but
major sections of the tree started dying back, and yeah, it wasn't good. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm gonna lose the tree. And then, you know, it started to recover and it started to get healthier, and I just let it grow. And now I think, well, I can't say my problems are behind me, because with an apple tree anything could happen in the future, but I think if I keep, you know, a careful eye on it, and if any problems start arising, I treat them right away. I hope I can get it healthy and looking really good, and maybe become a show tree. I'm trying to think if I ever had this in a show. I know I had it on display once as part of a tree I was working on, doing a demo, but I don't think I've ever displayed it as a, you know, a show tree or anything. So I'm hoping someday to display this as a show tree. It is a cool tree, very old. You know, I've been growing it for, probably 20 years. And it was growing at my sister's house before that, right beside her house. And it had been pruned back over and over because the person who owned the house didn't want this apple tree growing beside their house. Like, it was growing right beside the foundation. So they would just cut it back all the time. And my sister said, well, I've got an apple tree growing beside the house. Do you want it? And I said, yeah, I'll come over and take a look at it. And it was this giant, you know, it was a, well, you can see how thick the trunk is now. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to get that out of the ground? So I dug a huge hole around the tree and dug down deep, and it had these really, really thick roots that went straight down. So I got out a saw and I just cut the roots off flat. And I thought, well, if it lives, it lives. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And surprisingly, it recovered, and it had a really nice radial root system on it. One of the best I've had. But then my problems started after that. It just started getting disease and dying back. And so a lot of my radial surface roots, you know, the ones that are there are still here feeding the tree. You can see them down here. And the ones over here. But I think probably a lot of them on these dead sections, the roots have just died off with the living part of the tree. So not quite a radial root system anymore, but a really interesting root system. I think, you know, it's part of the charm of this tree. It has nice radial surface roots. Yeah, so then I've had the tree. So I think the tree was probably, I think her house was built in the 50s. So I imagine it's, you know, that old, from 50 to, you know, 2021 makes it 71 years old. Wow. Yeah, so this could be, you know, as old as 71 years old. Amazing. I finished my weeding on the apple tree, so it's looking much better. I'm going to give it the spray with the soap and water next. I'm going to spray the tree with the soap and water mixture, 40 parts water, 1 part liquid dish soap. So here I go. I'm going to try and drench the soil, get it in all the dead wood, give it a really good spray, you know, let it all soak in, and then I'll rinse it thoroughly with, like, you know, 3 watering cans full of water. And I think that'll help a lot. So here I go. Okay, that should do it. I did see a lot of aphids crawling around, getting attacked by the soap and water, so that's good.
I'll let that soak for just a little bit, and then I'll give it a really, really thorough rinsing. All right, it's time for the rinse cycle now. All right, watering can number 2. In my last watering can full, I'll put some powdered 20-20-20 fertilizer in, so you can see how much I use there. Put it in, mix it up. Like that. And that'll be my final watering can full for today. A bit of a spa day for my apple tree today. Apple trees are one of the few deciduous trees that look good with deadwood on them. And that's because that's how you often see them in old orchards and that. There's always a section that's died off, but the tree's still growing and producing apples. And yeah, it's quite common to see an apple tree, an old apple tree with half of it dead and the other half producing apples, which is kind of what bonsai is all about. Sometimes, you know, that life and death in the same tree, the drama, you know, vigorous life and then tragic death. And yeah, it kind of makes the tree very interesting. So my goal for this tree was always to make it look like an ancient apple tree from an orchard on someone's farm. And I think it's getting there. I'll put the apple tree back on the bench and I'll show you an update when the new leaves and branches start to grow in. It's time now for today's updates. My pomelo seedlings that were sent to me from Singapore are doing really well. They're enjoying the sunshine. You can see new leaves about to pop out on them. New leaves and branches, so that's exciting. They're doing well. The Scots pine in the pot that Shani made is doing really well also. I did some pruning this spring for the first time on it, and I think I could do more. I was a little worried about, you know, taking too much vigor out of the tree, but you can see the needle density is coming in really strong, that it could use some pruning. So my intent is to prune back this branch sticking out towards the viewer here, to prune it back or eventually possibly eliminate it and just keeping this one branch here that's above it. And my new apex, I don't know if it'll be here or this shoot here. One of those will be my new apex on the tree. And it's got a lot of work to go, but this branch hanging down in front will get pruned back to here. So I'll have this branch coming off to the side and one off to this side. Maybe even only keeping that one so you can see the trunk line then. So yeah, a lot of work to go on this tree, but it's the only tree I had that was close to looking good in the pot. And it's very small and needs a lot of growing before it does look good in the pot. But, you know, 5-10 years from now, who knows, it might look fantastic. One of the next trees that I'll be working on is my Sarissa. It's losing all its indoor leaves. You can see the leaves that grew over the winter are turning yellow and falling off. It's gotten used to full sun now. The leaves are coming in nice and small. The tree's growing really compact. So I'm going to work on the tree. I've got to get my pads separated from all my branches so there's space between it, and start getting multi-layers of foliage on the tree. And it really helps the tree look miniature rather than just being, you know, a big umbrella shape. So that'll be coming up quite soon, I think, maybe even tomorrow. My Cascade Eastern White Cedar here, or Thuja occidentalis, is doing really, really well. There's a lot of foliage, a lot of hanging foliage. Looks awesome. It's going to need a styling soon. I haven't really touched the tree since I planted it. This tree was in the pathway of where we collected with the club, and it had been stepped on and driven over many times. You can see there's a lot of deadwood in it. And it was just, yeah, it had seen a lot of abuse. So I collected it and I brought it home, and it sat in its bag that I collected it in, a plastic bag around the roots, for the whole summer. And
right through winter, and it's just because I didn't have time to get to it. And then in spring I saw it there once the snow melted, and I thought, oh, I better get this planted, otherwise it'll die. So I planted it, and it was quite a weak tree when I first collected it. And the first year it didn't do so well. It survived, a lot of branches died back, and then it started taking off. The roots started growing into this pot, and look at it now. It's like super, super healthy, which is good. So I can begin working on that soon too. So I was glad I finally got it repotted or potted up. I'm glad I collected it. I think it'll be a really cool tree in the future. Everyone getting some food, are they? Everyone's so excited. Everyone's so excited. They just love being outside running around. That one looks like he's got a tuxedo on him, this one here. Well, the day is warming up and I can see all my trees need watering, so I better get to that. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.